Let's just jump straight in with James Harden because you guys decided to fine him $50,000 for violating COVID protocols earlier this week. And then this morning, ESPN reported James will have to isolate for 4 days total, but he will be available for the Rockets' next game, which is Saturday. Now, the 4 days was determined by the league's medical experts, but above and beyond that, you guys could have decided to suspend him. Why fine instead of suspend?
The precedent is that discipline gets ratcheted up, and it's Christmas. It was a first offense. Frankly, to your point, the $50,000 is the limit of my authority under the collective bargaining agreement. And what would have happened? I mean, in a way, he got lucky because if the game had taken place last night as scheduled and he were unavailable because of his own actions, he would have missed a game and a paycheck. And so it would have, in practice, and ultimately have turned out to be a much larger sanction. But a little bit of luck there. I'd say also we're just beginning these protocols, and it seemed fair in the first instance. But it's Christmas.
Certainly appreciate your holiday spirit. And I understand you have discretion here. It's not the first time in even just the past couple weeks, though, that Harden was very visibly partying in clubs without a mask. And I know the first time he hadn't reported to training camp yet, but he was supposed to have. It's not that camp hadn't started. Every other Rockets player had to abide by COVID protocol rules that same week. Why didn't you consider James to be under those rules at that time?
He wasn't, because just as you said, he hadn't reported to training camp yet. I'd only say, Rachel, I think that anyone who's in a position of meting out discipline as I am can't succumb to frontier justice. I mean, I understand what Twitter would like to see happen here, but as a union, there are rules, and my job is to follow the rules. I mean, in this case, putting aside prior conduct, this was a first violation for James under these new protocols. And as I said, it was the limit of my fining authority. It didn't seem appropriate to suspend him for that act alone. And as I said, had the game been played and he had been out because of that conduct, the required quarantine, he would have missed a paycheck. And so, as I said, we're learning as we go.
And look, it's a thorny, complicated situation, not just for the league office, but for the Rockets themselves. It's been a rocky month overall in Houston. I know James has not publicly come out and said the two words, trade me. But regardless, I just want to know how you feel about one of your most high-profile players, a guy the Rockets are paying more than $500,000 each and every time he plays a game, so publicly and repeatedly acting against the best interests of the team.
Of course, my reaction is guys have contracts. They should honor them. And to the extent that there are disputes between teams and players, they should be handled behind closed doors. I mean, look, this isn't the first time you've had a star player who's expressed dissatisfaction with some aspect of his situation. I mean, it's been part of this league since its early days, but now everything gets amplified because of social media, digital media, the job that you and your colleagues do. So we recognize that, and it's not what you want to see as part of the league. And you hope that James will bear down and be a professional, and he'll honor to the T every aspect of his contract. But these issues need to be worked out, and I think it's now, of course, been compounded by this most recent violation. So it's a highly unusual time, and I think we have to take that into account. But you also count on everyone settling down now that regular season has begun again, and focusing on basketball.
Yeah, I mean, we did have those great highlights right at the top of the interview, and last night was the first full slate of games of the season. It was unfortunate that on day 2, basically, Thunder Rockets had to be postponed because the Rockets didn't have the minimum 8 players required to proceed. Can you just take me through what yesterday afternoon and evening were like for you as the league's medical group sorted all this out?
Well, again, we're following, as you said, a panel of doctors and scientists, and this is really there's an aspect of this that has nothing to do with discipline, because as we all know, I mean, there are violations of our rules, but then there's also living life outside of a bubble that we were in this summer. And if you're living your life just like every other American, whether it's because you have children in school, partners that are going to their jobs, or for that matter, going to the grocery store, visiting relatives, there's a chance that you're going to get infected. So we recognized going into the season, I said it, that we knew we were going to have cases. just as baseball saw cases and the NFL is working through those cases now. And so once, there was a confluence of a bunch of circumstances. There was James's high-profile violation, but then there was a series of incidents with the team, some involving violations, some not. And at the end of the day, our medical professionals have to go player by player and look at the particular situation of each player. Obviously, if someone's infected, that's a quick decision to isolate and separate them. But then there's the contact tracing, and then there's a question of what other players or team personnel did that infected person come in contact with, and that takes time. And one of the real difficulties in our league, unlike the NFL, of course, is we're playing essentially every other day. So there's not a lot of time to work through these issues. So that's what yesterday was like. And also say that as I mentioned earlier, we're going to learn as we go. I mean, just as you recall, Rachel, having been down in the bubble, we started with one set of protocols, but then we continually adjusted them as we were learning more. And I think it's going to be the same situation here. And it may even mean that with our Players Association, as we go, all these rules have to be negotiated, but we'll sit down with them and say, all right, these aspects aren't working. And I can say to a player, everyone wants this to work. I've said before, people want to work. Right. NBA players want to work. Everyone in our system, we account for tens of thousands of jobs. I mean, it's not just the players and the coaches. It's our broadcasting partners like yourself. It's those in the arenas. Even when the arenas aren't open to fans, it takes hundreds of people to stand up these arenas for every game. 6 arenas we started with fans in.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.